Well, welcome everyone. Good morning. This is Ken Arenik from the College of DuPage. I'm a librarian there, and I'll be serving as co-monitor for this session along with Jill King from DePaul University. Just so you know, there will be a Q&A at the end of the session, and our presenter asks that you add your questions to the chat box. The title of the session is Wrestling with Pigs, the Ethical Dilemmas of Teaching Sci-Hub. And our presenter today is Chris Sweet, the Information Literacy Librarian from Illinois Wesleyan University. So now without further ado, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Great, good morning. Thanks for having me today. This topic I became interested in because it touches on multiple aspects of librarianship, and particularly on multiple aspects of information literacy and scholarly communication. And as I've sort of delved into this tool some, I've become really intrigued with how it's challenging the status quo in scholarly publishing and what we do in librarianship. So this will be both sort of a general overview. If you've never really heard of it before, don't know how it works, never looked at the thing, we'll kind of go over that. But then we're really going to push into the ethics of using this. What do our professional codes tell us? How can that help us with sort of decision making? I may have a few questions sort of sprinkled in here where we can use the chat, but I definitely have allotted some time at the end for more robust discussions. So here's my general contention for this presentation. If you fall into one of these categories, the first one being that you would never ever use Sci-Hub, not in a million years, because it's evil, unethical, communist hive of villainy, or perhaps that you're super woke. You think Sci-Hub is open access, God's gift to humankind. You might be disappointed in what I come up with here. On the other hand, if you appreciate a good ethical dilemma, then you want to stick around. The other contention in the title, never wrestle with a pig, you both get dirty and the pig likes it. In the course of trying to find some images for this presentation, I realized that there actually is such a thing as pig wrestling. It's not just a metaphor like I thought it was. Some 4-H's still do it, and that I don't think that's actually an ethical dilemma. The ethics of that one is pretty clear. We should not be wrestling with any literal pigs. So the context matters. I didn't want to jump right into what is Sci-Hub, but what's the bigger picture issue? How do we get here? How do we end up here? And some of this is going to be speaking to the choir. I won't spend a huge amount of time on this context. Let's jump back to the 1990s, though. The internet's growing. We're trying to figure out how libraries can use it. There's early examples of ebooks and e-journals. This is awesome, right? So library budgets, we're finally going to catch a break. The costs have been rising and going up. Digital resources are going to save us money, right? There's no printing costs, no paper, and they didn't need to be mailed. This sounds win-win. A couple of points here. You should imagine this as Morgan Freeman narrating, because I can't quite do it. But as it turns out, library budgets did not catch a break. To the contrary, journal subscriptions increased far more rapidly than the regular inflation rates. We've all seen some version of this graph, but if you compare the serials expenditure to the regular inflation rate and monograph expenditure, they went up exponentially over the last 2-3 decades. Historically, most scholarly journals were published by university presses and academic societies. I'm talking even earlier than the 90s. Over the last 30 years, for-profit publishers have really created near monopolies in some areas of academic publishing. There's still plenty that are published by those academic societies, but many are now 5 major commercial publishers: Elsevier, Springer, Wiley, Taylor and Francis, and Sage. We deal with these people all the time if we're in collections, collection development, serials, this is not news to any of us. In the sciences, the market share is even greater for these publishers. So how bad is this? How bad has the cereal crisis gotten? So this company Relics, it's the parent company of Elsevier. Revenues of $9.8 billion, 31% profit margin. That's way, way up there. Sometimes we know this abstractly. I think it's important to put numbers to it. So the profits from Elsevier are about 40% of this total, $3.9 billion. This is a highly, highly profitable business. These exorbitant journal costs undermine the core principles of research and scholarship. How are we really supposed to share out information, keep science progressing if people can't have access to it? This is going back to 2008. Hopefully somebody that many or all of us recognize. This is an image of Aaron Swartz. If you don't know, you should really take a minute to find out some more about Aaron. There's a great documentary out about him and a great biography as well out there now. The documentary is called The Internet's Own Boy. But in 2008, he kind of codified everything that he stood for. He's from the Chicago suburbs, so there's also a local connection here as well. But this Guerrilla Open Access Manifesto was really trying to pull together the more radical elements of open access at the time. And it challenged, specifically, as you see in the second quote there, students, librarians, and scientists that we have a privilege. We're feeding at this banquet of knowledge. The rest of the world is locked out. You need not, indeed morally cannot, keep this privilege for yourself. So this is the foundation of where Sci-Hub kind of came from. Swartz worked on a lot of early software, like the RSS feed was some of his code, some of the way that Reddit evolved, some early online encyclopedias. He was really kind of a prolific coder and activist. So that's some of the background. Let's talk about Sci-Hub specifically now. Sci-Hub was created by a graduate student, Alexandra Elbakayan from Russia. And she was struggling to locate the research that she needed to complete her degree. So at the start, she was doing what a lot of people have done, asking friends for articles, things that she couldn't get her hands on. And then there is a hashtag on Twitter that's still around, the ICANN-has PDF. This was really popular for quite a while. People still use it. So it's a workaround for people that don't have quick and easy access to articles that they need. So 2011, a couple of years after that Guerrilla Open Access Manifesto, Elbakayan, she used her coding skills to begin building this Sci-Hub database. It's different than some of the things that became before it. Archive.org, relied on open access materials, things that were out of copyright. Sci-Hub, initially anyway, asked users to voluntarily share their credentials. So there were people around the world that shared their user ID and password to Alexandra. And that was the way that they started to build this huge, huge archive. And after that time, there's definitely some conjecture, possibly evidence that they've used more nefarious means to continue building this archive. This is how the system, at least how it initially worked. Whenever somebody requested an article, Sci-Hub would use those credentials that somebody gave to them. If the article wasn't in their database, it would find it, and then it would make a copy of it, and it would deliver it to the person that was requesting it as well. I think they've also done quite a bit of just scraping of databases as well, given the size of this archive. This is from the Washington Post, and it was, I believe, 2019, I think, is when this came out. So the Justice Department was looking into Sci-Hub because they're very concerned about some of this data going to Russian intelligence. And this idea of collecting login credentials. So there is definitely, were these things, was it hacking? Were they phishing for credentials and getting people to involuntarily submit their credentials, or were people still just voluntarily saying, hey, I believe in what you're doing. Here's my username, here's my password, keep up the good work. So some was voluntary, some was probably done through phishing illegal means. When she was contacted about this, she said, well, yeah, it makes sense that you guys are looking into me. I was previously a hacker, but really I'm not working for intelligence. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt, but that's her contention. How big is this thing? Currently, it claims to have 85 million scholarly articles. So for a baseline, for a comparison, the core Web of Science collection, it has 79 million articles. So you can kind of get a sense of the scope of this thing. In 2017, there was a good analysis done that found out that SciHub had 68% of all scholarly articles and 97% of articles from Elsevier. Back to Morgan Freeman. Elsevier did not like that they had 97% of all their articles and were giving them away for free. So there was some litigation. 2015, Elsevier sued SciHub and Alexander Elbakayan. SciHub, not surprisingly, they didn't even try to defend the lawsuit. The court awarded Elsevier $15 million and an injunction against SciHub. This really was rather just meaningless. SciHub doesn't have any fixed location, and whatever assets, there's no headquarters or anything like that to try to get a hold of. So the next question, where is SciHub? And if you take a look at the screenshot that I have, I found that yesterday. Does anyone know which SciHub link is working? I can't finish my PhD without SciHub. And she's mentioning some of the extensions, URL extensions that it was previously listed under. Somebody else says you can still use the ICANN-has PDF tag on Twitter. So a lot of people are using this as a workaround. Why does she need to ask? Well, because that URL continues to move around. There's been additional court cases, so one URL will get shut down, but this archive has been copied many times over. So this thing's not going away. Many copies of this huge archive exist. So sometimes Google doesn't know what the current URL is. SciHub Wikipedia entry usually has one that works. If you go to try to find it, I'm not saying one way or the other if you want to look at this, but some campuses are going to actively block SciHub's URL. And I'm actually curious if anybody knows that theirs is filtered or blocked right now. If you know that it's blocked on your campus, go ahead and throw something in chat. I can access it here at Illinois Wesleyan, no problem. In librarians, we're talking some about this, but really not very much, given how popular this tool has become. This was an article published in Science, who's downloading pirated papers? Everyone. Well, maybe not everyone, but it is really popular. This is some more. This is some data from that same article. SciHub has only done this once that I know of, but they opened up 6 months of data. They just said, here, okay, you guys want to know more about us? Here's 6 months of everything that we've delivered, including like the geotags, geolocations of where things have come from. So you can see by the size of the dots on those world maps, you know, a lot of it is not being used in the United States, but it's still millions within the United States if you take a look at the usage map that breaks it down to US only. And this is 2015, so more people know about it since then. So if this is new to you, it may or may not be. Am I telling you that anybody, anywhere with an internet connection can access most of the world's scholarly articles for free? Yeah, that's kind of the way this tool works. And it sort of poses the question: is this an open access utopia, or is it some sort of inverse dystopian open access world that we need to contend with? So now let's move into the ethical dilemmas piece of the equation here. So an ethical dilemma, it occurs when you need to choose between two courses of action. And perhaps they're of equal moral importance. So the choice necessarily entails some sort of a transgression of an important moral principle. The trolley problem is a classic way to illustrate this. If you're in charge of the lever, what do you do there? It was also very admirably illustrated by The Good Place, which I was going to show a video of, but I realized it's actually incredibly violent out of context. So I just gave you a few still images. If you're interested in moral philosophy, awesome TV series. There's a great article if you want to read up more on the philosophical side of this, the legal side and the moral side. This is Rick Anderson in 2018 writing for the Scholarly Kitchen. And this is basic legal philosophy, but two types of acts: malum prohibitum, acts that are technically illegal but not morally wrong. So what are some examples? Jaywalking, speeding, forgery, illegal immigration. Those are examples of the first one. Malum in se, evil in and of themselves. Big examples: murder, robbery, assault, child abuse. So we need to think a little bit about that robbery one. Does that apply here to SciHub? And what about this, copyright infringement? Does it fall clearly in one or the other? Is it in between? This is it's not the conclusion that Rick Anderson puts forth, but he says in the article, this is a way that a lot of librarians are thinking about it. And that is, what's generally wrong is restricting access to knowledge. Copyright piracy as a method of opening up knowledge is not wrong, it's merely illegal. So depends on how comfortable, I guess, we are with merely illegal. So what do our various professional codes tell us? Can they help us with this this solution, or a solution? All right, so let's start with the ALA Code of Ethics, last updated 2008. It tells librarians that we have we're special. We've got an obligation to ensure the free flow of information and ideas to present and future generations. Would seem to be in favor of something like SciHub. So we're thinking, awesome, I'm all about SciHub. I'm gonna just leave now. I'm gonna go update all my LibGuides. I'm good. There's more though. Same code, right? Same code of ethics. We respect intellectual property rights and advocate for balance between the interests of information users and right holders. Not so clear anymore. How about another one? The United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Everybody has a right to freedom of opinion and expression. Includes the freedom to hold opinions without interference, seek and receive, impart information, ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Well, that sounds pretty good. So, right, if a whole bunch of downloads from SciHub are happening in the library, I can just tell IT, right, to go talk to the UN, and I'm all good, right? Not sure. Another one, a different code. This one coming from the International Federation of Library Associations. So for using SciHub, support for the principles of open access, open source, and open license. Right? This sounds good. But on the other hand, we're supposed to partner with authors, publishers, other creators of copyright protected works, and to respect and recognize intellectual property right of authors and other creators. So we've got this dilemma again, right? One part of the code of ethics says one thing, and then another is maybe in conflict. A different one, Intellectual Freedom Manual. Intellectual freedom can only exist where society makes an equal commitment to the right of unrestricted access to information and ideas, regardless of the communication medium used, the content of the work, viewpoints of both the author and the receiver of the information. So this is kind of big picture librarianship. And I think this might be my last one, but this is an interpretation of the code of ethics. When the balance between right holders and information users needs to be restored, library workers should engage with the right holders and legislators to advocate on behalf of their users and user rights. So we need to think about all of this when we're thinking about this this problem of Sci-Hub. Back to the trolley problem. So this is not an ethical code. This is just an article from the Cornell archive, and this is recent. This was published in 2020. In a pretty extensive analysis found that papers that were downloaded from Sci-Hub were cited more times than ones not downloaded from Sci-Hub. It's a pretty strong indicator that it's increasing the sharing of knowledge, the way that science is supposed to work, putting it out there in front of more eyes so that more people can build upon the scholarship. Yeah, we've got a little bit of time. I put this slide in here because I wasn't sure if we were going to have enough time to jump over and actually take a look in action. So I've got a DOI of an article that I wrote. So this is the live version of Sci-Hub. If you haven't seen this thing before, it works a lot better with if you're using just a DOI rather than our sort of keyword searches. So I think this is one of the things that people like about this, right? That was it.
Chris, we're not seeing your the internet screen. That we're just seeing your PowerPoint still.
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
That one?
There we go. Yep, thanks.
I will try that again. DOI, open. You can see the appeal from a user standpoint, right? This it's very slick, it's very quick. It doesn't do a good job with keyword and subject searching, which is actually how most of us like to search. So it's really a better tool for locating an article. The interesting thing is that this article that I wrote with Elizabeth Claridge from Carly, it's in my selected works page of our institutional repository as a preprint. So it's available open access out there. This one links straight to the journal article though. So that's what it looks like in action. Let me go back to sharing my slides. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here with a couple of takeaways and a few questions to think about. Sci-Hub's not going away. There's nothing to stop this. There's so many copies of this archive out there now, and they can always put it someplace else. I think librarians should stay informed about Sci-Hub in case students or faculty ever bring it up. We can continue the work that we're doing right now, really pushing for open access and open educational resources. Now, here's an interesting one. There's a lot of parallels here with the way that Napster evolved. very similar models, right? Napster took all sorts of pirated music that was copyrighted and made it illegally available to a whole bunch of people. Very similar. It took a while, but what do we have now? We've got Pandora, we've got Spotify, we've got Amazon Music, this huge libraries of music that's available for a very reasonable cost. Could this be done with scholarly articles? If it was able to be done with music, it probably can be done. So now a few questions to ponder, and then we'll turn it over to discussion. So I think a lot of people were more familiar maybe with the ICANN has PDF. It was really popular on Twitter for a number of years. And I think most of us felt good when our friends, asked us to find something that they couldn't get their hands on. It's what we do, right? We connect users with information. It's slower than what SciHub does, but at an ethical level, is it any different? How about this one? What if a student has identified an article? They really need it. I mean, we all see this, right? They're under the gun. Paper's due tomorrow. They're going to be writing all night. They don't want to wait for something they can't get their hands on in full text. Yeah, I can't help. Sorry, you should have started the paper earlier, right? The party line. Or I'll help you find something else that might be as good. But what if we help students make the interlibrary loan requests so that the fees are paid, copyright regulations are upheld, but then right after that, we also sent them the same article that we got from SciHub. What are the ethics there? Think about that one. It's the Information Literacy Summit. Would you ever bring it up? Would you ever discuss SciHub in an Information Literacy Summit? Only if a student brought it up. They said, well, why are we here today? I don't really need to use your tools. I just go to SciHub. I get everything there. So straightforward answers, I'm not sure that there's a ton out there. I hope for those of you that are kind of new to SciHub, it was a good introduction and an introduction to some of these sticky ethical problems as well. So I will take any questions.
Thanks very much, Chris. This was awesome. And SciHub is new to me, so this is a great overview, and you pose some really sort of challenging sort of ethical questions. So it looks like some questions are coming up, and I'm just going to turn it over to Jill.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Let's see. The first question says, I've never seen it on Google Scholar, but does it link to SciHub?
I have never seen it either. I think Google Scholar's keeping SciHub at least arm's length away. Google does have assets, a whole bunch of assets. So I think they want to keep those assets, and so they're probably not doing anything to directly link to SciHub.
Thanks. The next question is, what about you, Chris? Do you teach SciHub to your students?
I am right now in the only if somebody mentions it, which doesn't happen very often. Because it is this sticky issue, and we want the students to utilize the resources that we pay a lot for, right? I think that's important to keep in context. Now, as far as teaching it directly in a class, that's one thing, but reference interactions are also another form of teaching. And under pressure, I think that the sort of the ethical dilemma I posted there at the end, a student really needs something. There's nothing else that's going to suffice that information need. If I can get them the article from SciHub and place the interlibrary loan request at the same time, I've probably done that a couple times.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm kind of amazed now that it's never come up for me in a class. After hearing this, It's a surprise to me.
Some students are still finding out about it. It's certainly more popular in STEM disciplines, although there's quite a bit of other humanities, social science content. You know, if it's got 80 million articles, there's a wide array in there.
And another question about the coverage. Do you know if SciHub has resource types other than articles, like ebooks, which can be hard to get through ILL?
I've not seen them on there, and they don't, I believe, offer like an ISBN search on that homepage. I think that's correct anyway. They've really kind of stuck to their initial vision. There's no reason they couldn't have expanded it, but it really, scholarly journal articles, particularly in the sciences, is what it was built on, and it's really not strayed much from that initial, the way that it was built originally.
An interesting question too. Have you ever used SciHub to talk about some of the issues that you raised here with students? So, you know, using SciHub to talk about copyright or economics of information and things like that.
I have so few opportunities for that sort of discussion. I certainly would, in the right type of class. Actually, I've got a journalism class in new media coming up in what we consider our May term that may be a fit for that sort of discussion. So no, because you know, like a lot of us, I'm doing mostly 1 and 2 shots for a class, and it doesn't usually stray into that sort of content.
Let's see, what about, there's a question, I would be curious how you would compare SciHub to academia.edu or ResearchGate.
I haven't used academia.edu, I don't believe, at all. It works similar to ResearchGate, except that the way that they get the SciHub articles is perhaps more nefarious. We're not sure of how they're scraping all those articles other than the credentials that people have willingly handed over. I think SciHub is certainly more comprehensive than ResearchGate, but ResearchGate is certainly gaining in popularity. So they are similar tools.
There's a question as well. What about the argument of information privilege and students losing access upon graduation?
Yeah, it's a great. I think I'm sure it's one of the drivers why these sort of shadow libraries are succeeding, because there is a huge range of information privilege out there. And if you go back and look at some of those heat maps that I linked to, you'll see a lot from Africa and India for usage of SciHub. And there's a reason for that, and it is this lack of access. You know, it's so incredibly expensive, these the library database subscriptions. And then if you don't have that and you find something, we've all seen them, right? Or you run a search on Google, you find something that looks awesome. You can have this article for 30 bucks. You know, you can have this article for 24 bucks or something like that. So, you know, the economics of scholarly publishing is pushing these shadow libraries to occur, which is one of the reasons that I think that Napster model is so interesting. You know, right now there's a few lawsuits going out, but they haven't succeeded at all in tamping down on SciHub or ResearchGate, really, for that matter. So what are they going to do? Are they going to follow some kind of model where they monetize this? We don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well, like, would people be willing to pay a smaller amount to get the content legally?
Right. I mean, if I wasn't at a university and they came up with a model that's like Spotify or Pandora, it's 10 or 15 bucks a month, same access to this huge, I'd do that in a heartbeat.
There was another question here. I've heard of concerns about SciHub articles possibly having malware embedded in them. Don't know how true prevalent that is.
It's a good concern. I've seen some of the same concerns. So it's something to be careful with. I would be more careful with the extension. If you try to do like a keyword search instead of just dropping a DOI into the search box, it'll say we can't really do that unless you download this Chrome extension. You know, and you'd like to think that there's nothing nefarious going on with that extension, but when you allow an extension to have access to your browser, that's another kind of another level up from accessing a PDF. It allows a back way into perhaps your PC. So I would certainly be more skeptical of downloading that extension than a straightforward PDF. It's from a computer science standpoint, it's difficult to embed something that's really going to affect your computer in a PDF. If it's not a PDF, so if they say you're getting a PDF and they download some other type of file, yeah, it could happen. But a PDF itself, it can't contain that additional code that at least I'm aware of.
Great. I think if I missed any questions, feel free to type it in again. We just have another minute or two. I think I've covered everything that I noticed in the chat.
Yeah, I really, maybe I'm curious from people in the chat, or I don't know if you can share video or not, a couple of these sticky problems. You can discuss SciHub in an information literacy session? What about this scenario that I proposed, where you get the article from SciHub, but you also request it through legal normal means?
Yeah, I know in my case, I even see that on professional listservs that I'm part of, where somebody says, hey, I put the ILL request in the meantime, can somebody scan me a page of this? So it's, you'd probably get the same answer from librarians in a lot of cases as you would from students.
Sure.
Well, thanks so much, Chris. I think we're at time. This was really, really interesting. Thanks for giving us a lot to think about.
You're welcome.
And lots of thanks and kudos in the chat as well.
Thanks very much, Chris. This was a terrific presentation and gave us a lot to think about. So.